Alright, hi out there in the YouTube land. It's me again, the Puzzle Master. And in this video, I'm going to be going over Gemini. So if your ascendant is Gemini, your sun, or your moon, predominantly if it's one of those three. It can still have applicability if your Venus is in this sign, but it would apply in those ways of that sign. So, Gemini. What's Gemini all about? Well, I'm going to break it down to its constituent components. That's what we always do. To fully understand them, you got to break them apart into what they're really made out of. So, it's a mutable sign. So that means that they're very adaptable. Unlike Taurus, that doesn't like change so much, Gemini doesn't mind it so much. So it's a little more apt to be able to change. It's mutable. The mutability means basically adaptability. You know, being able to take something that they already have and change it and transform it into a new form. So they're very adaptable. Their ruling planet is Mercury. So Mercury is the god of communication. You know, it's supposed to be like the divine messenger of the gods. And it's basically all about communication. So if their sun sign is Gemini, then you would find that they are very chatty, very expressive of themselves. They don't tend to hold things back. You might find them to be quite the chatterbox. If their moon sign is Gemini, then they might come off as chatty sometimes, but really that means that their mind is just always going, like always chatting. There isn't really much stillness going on there. So a lot of people, if you have your moon sign as Gemini, then you might need to listen to loud music, you know, have a fan going to kind of just wash out those thoughts, to give you something to focus on, because your brain just doesn't shut up if your moon sign is Gemini. But if it's your sun, that's how you come off or express yourself. So you'd be more chatty externally. Its symbol is the twins. And the twins are like the child of the zodiac. So it's kind of like the Peter Pan. They don't want to grow up. And don't force them to, because, I mean, they can still handle responsibilities and all that. But don't expect them to turn into a Capricorn and just be Mr. Serious all the time. Because the Gemini doesn't want to do that. That's just boring to them. Like, that's not fun. Like, not to say that Gemini can't be serious, but there's a time and a place. And when it's time for fun, Gemini is going to have fun. Like, they're all about communication. The sign is also the third house, rules over friendships. So it's very social sign. It likes to make connections between things, broad topics. And it's very good at making the interconnection between subjects that normally people wouldn't see how there is a correlation. They can see the correlation. They're very, very good at that. Now, because, kind of on the flip side of Gemini, yes, they have that youth and that vitality and that childlike nature, but they're also the twins, meaning little bipolar. So, just like a child, they might be laughing and having fun, but the next moment they could be having a temper tantrum or freaking out, and they're very, very flippant. They can flip back and forth between these expressions of themselves very, very quickly. Unlike any other sign. No sign really has the ability to, be furious one moment and then 30 seconds later be laughing and having a good time. Like, just because they're in a bad mood 1 second does not mean they get stuck in that for the whole day. Some signs, when they get sad or depressed, it lingers and is very, very hard to alleviate. But a Gemini, they can just flip right back. And they're very good for that. And yeah, so as I said, Gemini is kind of the child. So if you're dating a Gemini and you think that they're not serious enough or that they need to take more responsibilities, just talk to them about it. You know, like Gemini is the sign of communication and very logical minded. Being also an air sign, they're all about, higher minded thoughts. Like air is like, up in the clouds, like thought, thinking. They love to think about stuff and, try to make those interconnections, and that's fun for them. And yeah, doesn't mean that Gemini is always chatty, because there is the duality. So if they're being quiet, it can be kind of hard to break them out of that, because, if they're bored, boredom for Gemini is like the #1 mood killer. Like it's the worst thing in the world. Like it literally feels like, oh, it's so horrible. So if you're with a Gemini, you kind of have to be able to entertain them. They're very reciprocal in their nature, meaning like you get what you give. But if you don't give anything, then they really have nothing to share back to you, because they just see like, what's the point? Like they could talk to a wall and get the same kind of responses. So they really want someone who is engaging and who's willing to talk about things, broad subjects. And Gemini also loves books, typically. Like, not all Geminis, but for the most part, it very much applies to them. It's also very important for any of the signs. I didn't really mention this in Taurus or Aries, but it is important to look at the ruling planet of that sign. Meaning, so if you are dating a Gemini, but their Mercury is placed in Capricorn, then you actually might find that they're a lot more serious, and they like to talk about things of a very serious nature, and work and regimens and schedule keeping and all that kind of stuff, because that's where Mercury falls in their chart. If it falls in Aquarius, then they might want to talk about, like, if they're a Gemini, but their Mercury is in Aquarius, then you might find that they like to talk about really weird things, like things that most people would find uncomfortable, or that are very out of the box, very eccentric, because it all depends on the placement of the Mercury sign. Very important. I myself, just as an example, I have my moon sign, Mercury, is conjunct my moon sign. So what that really means is that I'm able to express what's on my mind very easily. It just comes naturally to me. And not everyone is this way. So really look at the Mercury placement for your Gemini partner, and that will really show you the type of genre of topics that they would like to talk about. And yeah, I hope that you have found this video helpful and that it helps your relationship, because we are all sacred. Everyone is different. We all have different chart components that make up who we are. And it's ultimately about having compassion and understanding for the vast diversity of beautiful life that exists. Like, if everything was all the same, there'd be no diversity, and that would just be horrible, because then there'd be really nothing to learn from each other if we were all carbon copies of each other, right? So, yeah, remember to love each other, be kind and compassionate, and yeah, subscribe if you're new to my channel, and give this a thumbs up, and mwah, I will see you in Cancer, the crab. Bye for now.